The Parasha is Tisa, and this Parasha deals with one of the most difficult stories in Jewish history, if not the most difficult story in Jewish history, because this Parasha is the story of the golden calf, Chet Egel. And Chet Egel is considered to be the worst of all the sins, of all the Averos that you can ever imagine, is the sin of the golden calf. So here we're going to take a Chumash, and we're going to talk a little bit about the Chet Egel. Oy, Chet Egel, a difficult parsha. Moshe Rabbeinu is basically spending 40 days on top of the mountain, Mount Sinai, and he's ready to receive the Torah. The tablets was prepared to bring it down back to the Jewish people. And then on chapter 32 in the book of Shemot, is where the story begins in this next parsha, Vayaro'om ki boishesh Moshe loredas min ha'or. The people saw that Moshe delayed. He delayed descending the mountain. And the people gathered around Aaron, and they said to Aaron, Kum aseilonu Elokim, rise up and make for us gods. Asher yelchu lefoneinu, that shall go before us. Ki ze Moshe oish, the man Moshe, Asher elonu mieretz Mitzrayim, who had brought us up from the land of Egypt. Lo yodanu mehoyo loi, we don't know what became of him. We don't know what happened to Moshe. And then Aaron is trying to buy some time. He asks them to bring their gold, their jewelry, and they throw it into the fire. And there came out the famous golden calf. And when Moshe is coming down the mountain, and he sees that they've worshipped the golden calf. So as the Torah tells us on verse 15, Vayefen vayered Moshe min ha'or. Moshe turned and descended from the mountain, Ushnei luchos o edus beyodai, with the two tablets of the testimony in his hands. And the Torah describes how the luchos looked like. And he hears the way the sound of the people. Vayishma Yoshua et kol ha'om bere'o. Yoshua heard the sound of the people in its shooting, in its shouting. And he tells Moshe what's going on. And as the Torah says, Vayehi kasher karav el ha'machaneh. And it happened when Moshe drew near the camp. Vayar et ha'egel v'hamecholot. And he saw the calf. And he also saw the dancing around it. Vayichar af Moshe. Moshe became very angry. Vayashleich miyodo v'saluchos. He immediately threw down the tablet from his hands. Vayeshaber oisom tachas ha'or. And he broke those tablets right there at the bottom of the mountain. So this is the story of the breaking of the tablets, which took place on the 17th of Tammuz, 40 days after the Torah was given. And if you read this parsha, and I'm sure you do, you will find and see the unbelievable anger that God has for having sinned with such an horrible sin called the sin of the golden calf, which is associated also closely to idol worship. To the point that God is ready very clearly to annihilate the entire nation, to get rid of them completely. No one is going to remain except Moshe will be spared, and perhaps start a whole new nation, a whole new society with Moshe. Moshe is going to be the one left, and Moshe will begin the new nation of Israel. But here, Moshe, the faithful shepherd, stands up before God. And if you turn to verse 31, you will see he turns to God and he says, Vayashav Moshe el Hashem vayomar. Moshe returned to Hashem and he said, Ana, I implore, Chata ha'am hazeh chataha gdola. These people have sinned a great sin. Vayasu lahem Elohei za'av, and they made for themselves a god of gold. But ve'ato, he tells God, now, im Tisa chatasam, if you will forgive their sin, and as the verse doesn't say what will happen, but Rashi says, and now if you're going to forgive their sin, Rashi adds the words, arei tov, then it's fine. And Rashi says that sometimes the verses are writing in a very short format, but really this is what the verse means. The verse means to say that if you forgive them the sin, things are good. And we're going to see soon why doesn't he say those words, then things will be good. But this is what the verse says. Im Tisa chatasa, if you are ready to bear their sin, then good. And here he says the most amazing words that a leader can stand up and advocate for his people. But Moses saying these following words, Ve'im ayin. But if not, if you are not ready to forgive them, Mecheini na misifrecha asher kasafta. Erase me now from the book that you have written. I don't want to be mentioned in this entire Torah. I don't want to have my name there if you are not ready to forgive them. Hashem tells Moshe, what are you talking about? Those who sinned will be erased. But at the end, Hashem does accept Moshe's plea, and obviously he does not annihilate the entire nation as he wanted originally. In this parsha, there is so much to talk about the golden calf, understanding what went into the mind of those people. What were they thinking 40 days after seeing God on the mountain to go and to create for themselves a golden calf? One of the big questions, philosophical questions, theological questions that all commentaries are dealing with. In this parsha, trying to understand what happens to Moshe, why is he so much trying to protect the sinners of the golden calf, is another great topic of discussion by all commentators. What God agreed and what God didn't agree is yet another topic. What we would like to discuss tonight, since we're trying to be concentrated on one topic, is what exactly encouraged Moshe to break the tablets. This is the topic of discussion. Why did he break it? After all, this is the most precious commodity that he had just received directly by God. As the Torah itself testifies that these tablets were made by God. Maaseh Elokim v'aluchot Maaseh Elokim Eima. It says earlier in the verse. On verse 15, on verse 16 in this chapter 32, Ve'aluchot Maaseh Elokim Eima. The tablets are the work of God. Ve'amichtav Michtav Elokim Hu. And the script was the script of God. Charut al haluchot, etched and engraved in the tablets. So you have something which is clearly handmade by God, and Moshe initiates on his own. God never told him to do it, and he never asked permission to do it. He gets frustrated, seemingly, by seeing the dancing around the golden calf, and he lets the tablets go, boom, throws it out of his hands. If they don't deserve it, put it aside. Find a corner on the mountain, on the bottom of the mountain, give it over to Joshua, your servant. What is this rush by taking this holy, precious tablets and smashing them into pieces? That doesn't make any sense. And it looks like this question was bothered by Rashi, obviously, and by other commentators. And Rashi gives us one of the insights. That Rashi says that Moshe was using here a personal reason which encouraged them to go and to break the tablets. What happened? So Rashi says as follows. Rashi says that Moshe said to himself, we find in the Torah, with regard to one of its commandments called the Korban Pesach. They just came off Pesach a few months earlier. Regarding the Korban Pesach, which is only one of the commandments, it says in the Torah clearly that any stranger shall not eat from the Korban Pesach. Meaning, as Rashi sees there in the beginning of Shemot, that anyone who knowingly rejects the Torah, we're not talking about a Gentile. Gentile for sure don't eat from the Korban Pesach. But Rashi says, what does it mean when it says in the Torah, Kol ben Eichar? It means even a Jew. But a Jew is openly, intentionally rejecting the Torah given by God, cannot partake in the Paschal sacrifice. So Moshe says to himself, 1 second, if there's one mitzvah of the 613, which the Torah tells us that if you're rejecting Torah, you should not be a partake of it, you should not be a part of it, how much more so when the entire Jewish nation are here rejecting God. And I have in my hand the entire Torah. How much more so they don't deserve to get it. And they gave them the idea to break it. This is what Rashi says. Obviously, this only explains perhaps how Moshe was looking to protect the Torah with his calculation that God perhaps wants me to break it. But it doesn't answer the breaking. Don't break it. Don't smash it. Give it over. Put it in a safe. After all, God gave it to him. And when God gave it to him, he was already informed that the people are not behaving, and God still gave it to him. Right? So what are you smashing it? What are you breaking it into pieces? So what does it mean it's breaking? So there's another Rashi. Rashi says something very interesting, which if Rashi wouldn't say it, I don't think anybody else would be able to make such a conclusion in what got Moshe to break the luchas. So listen to what Rashi says later. Rashi says that Moshe Rabbeinu comes down the mountain and he sees things are good, things are bad. Things look really bad. The people are worshiping an idol. And he got to figure out how we are going to calm God down. Because he understands that God is not going to be happy and things are not going to be good. And we got to figure out what to do here. Says Rashi something very interesting. Listen to that. Just a second. Let me find it. Oh, listen to what Rashi says. I'm going to read you from Rashi, then explain. Rashi brings the analogy to understand that Rashi uses. We can understand it through a parable. The parable is of a king who went overseas, traveled, and he left his wife with the maidservants. Now, when it says he left his wife, Rashi explains that it is the woman which was betrothed to him, meaning that this is the type of marriage which was not yet completely confirmed, but they already had a marriage contract that they're going to get married. And this is his wife. And he left her. And he left her together with the other maidservants. The maidservants somehow did not behave. They did not conduct themselves modestly. And there was a big rumor. Everybody was talking in town. Ooh, what's going on in the palace? The king left. The maids are not behaving. And because the discussion was about the maids, and she was the one left with the maids, so obviously the rumor was also in regard to the king's personal wife. She was also included in that rumor. What happened? There was a very good friend that she had. That good friend went over to a ketubah and he ripped it up. He ripped the ketubah up. Why did he rip it up? Because the good friend said, 1 second, the king is going to come on and he's going to want to kill her because he thinks that she also committed adultery. She also didn't behave properly. Then I would say to him, hello, there is no ketubah yet. Means she wasn't married to you. She was only engaged. And if she was not a married woman, she doesn't deserve to die because she wasn't yet married to you. It's a married woman who is unfaithful to your husband, and then there is the consequences which are being provided. But see, she wasn't married yet. What's the proof? The proof is there is no ketubah. There is no marriage contract. And so it happened. The king is coming home and he gets very angry and furious because he hears that his what do you call this, fiancée and perhaps his wife is included in that rumor, and he wants to kill her. But meantime, there is no ketubah. And then he finds out slowly, until they're going to figure what the ketubah is, he finds out that it wasn't here. It was only the other maids who were involved in the situation. And obviously he became reconciled with his wife, and he gave her even a second ketubah. Rashi uses this as a parable to what took place here at the story of the golden calf. Moshe is coming down the mountain. The Jewish people are considered seemingly being betrothed to God. The story of the giving of the Torah is like a marriage. We married God, God married us. And he gave us a ketubah. What is the ketubah? The Torah, the tablet, is the marriage contract. If we are involved in worshiping another God, an idol, while being already married to God, then the consequences are very severe. You are a married woman who is unfaithful to your husband. So Moshe with his great love and friendship to the Jewish people, went and teared up. He ripped the ketuvah by breaking the tablets. He actually ripped the ketuvah that God should not be able to prove that we are married to him. Not married? You never spoke to him yet. There's no wedding. What's the proof? There's no ketubah. This is what Rashi says. Now, what's interesting is that if you analyze these Rashi, and you learn that there was actually a positive motive that Moshe had in mind by putting aside, by ripping up the ketubah, you can still wonder, after all, why break it? You can hide it in such a way that no one can find it and say there is no ketubah. Is there a need to rip it? I understand that by ripping it, you're ensuring that there is no evidence to prove the fact that there was actually a ketubah written. Before we're going to explain it a little bit, I want to give you another Rashi. But before that, I'm going to make a shahakol on my cup of tea and say l'chaim to everybody. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, she'akol niya b'dvaro. L'chaim, l'chaim. Ooh, some tea with lemon, with honey, nothing better than that. Okay, let me tell you another Rashi, and then we're going to bring it all together. This Rashi is actually the last Rashi in the entire Chumash. This is in the book of Deuteronomy, the end of Chumash Dvarim. The last words that the Torah says at the day that Moshe Rabbeinu passed away, that this Torah, the strong hand, Asher Asa Moshe Leinei Kol Israel, that Moshe performed wonders with his strong hand before the eyes of the entire nation of Israel. And Rashi says that this specifically refers to the fact that Moshe went and he broke the tablets. This is the wonders. This is the mighty hand and the wonderful hand that Moshe was recognized at the end of the entire Torah, the day that he actually passed away. You obviously see right away that the way the Torah considers the breaking of the tablets is not something to be embarrassed of. Matter of fact, something which the Torah is very proud of Moshe, to consider it as one of the great accomplishments that Moshe did at the last day of his life, and he tried to bring out what is the wonderful, amazing accomplishment of Moshe. What do you say? Wow, he even broke the tablets. What is so great about breaking the tablets? Matter of fact, it's even more. In the Chumash, again in Devarim, it says that they used to go out to war. When the Jewish people used to go out to war, they were carrying with them the ark. The ark. What was inside the ark? What was inside the ark? There was the luchot, the second pair of the tablets, plus the broken, smashed pieces of the original tablets. Right? Now think about it. You're going to war. You're going to war. And when you're going to war, you're obviously looking for credit. You're looking for something which is going to protect you, something which is going to stand for you, advocate for you. And then the Torah tells us, I'm looking it up now, in chapter 10 in Dvarim, Shabarta v'samtum be'orin, that the small broken pieces of the tablets were also placed in the ark. Now, if you're looking for credit, what great credit can there be by those broken tablets? Whenever you look at those broken tablets, what would you remember? You're going to remember one thing, that they sinned the golden calf. So you're going to war and you're trying to present yourself and surround yourself with some kind of protection, things which are going to advocate for you, things which are going to bring out the great merit of you as a people. And what do you see? Broken pieces of the luchas. Doesn't make any sense. It seems, and comes out very clear in this whole story, that there is something very, very special and very, very positive into which the broken tablets represent. And that's why Moshe deserves a special thank you by God for doing it. He initiates the breaking of the tablet without asking for permission. There is something very special about breaking of the tablets. The question is, what is it? So I'm going to share with you two things. One is something which the Rebbe, and I heard it from the Rebbe himself, 1986 Simchas Torah. A few times I already shared with you Simchas Torah insights. That Simchas Torah 1986 was a very interesting Simchas Torah, as the tradition always was. You have a kafod both nights, the night of Shmini Atzeret and the night of Simchas Torah. The second night, after davening Ma'ariv, evening prayers, around 7 o'clock, they did not go to Akafot right away. The Rebbe sat down for a Farbrengen in preparation for Akafot, which he used to speak and say insights into Torah and inspiration and songs, and then finish around midnight. By 12 o'clock, they used to finish the Farbrengen, about 12:30, and then 1 o'clock in the morning, they just started the Akafot, which went all the way to the morning. That was every year, the night of Simchas Torah. No one went to sleep Simchas Torah night, no such a thing. I remember that particular Farbrengen, 1986, when the Rebbe spoke about this very idea of Moshe breaking the tablets and speaking how strongly positive it is for Moshe and why this is the last message that the Torah shares about Moshe, because this is the most important and greatest message about Moshe. And he brought a famous medrash. The medrash says that before God even created the world, he already had the Torah and he already had the Jewish people. These two, meaning their idea, perhaps, existed before the world was created. I mean, it's not before in time, because there was no time before creation. It is before the idea, there was higher than the world, meaning prior, and that which transcends the world is Torah and the Jewish people. And the Medrash said, but I'm not sure which one came first. Did the Torah came first, or the Jewish people came first? Says the Medrash, the fact that the Torah says, Daber el bnei Israel, tzav et bnei Israel, tell the Jewish people, command the Jewish people, that proves that the Jewish people are first. Because the Torah is already speaking about commandments and orders to them. So they come before the Torah. And the Rebbe explained that what does it mean before? The idea over here is not before time-wise. That's not the issue. Before means higher. Before means greater. Before means that which takes a greater priority and greater value. When you have an issue which is Torah versus the Jewish people, the Torah is second, and the Jewish people will come first. The existence and the survival of the Jewish people as a people is even stronger and greater than the survival of the very Torah. What do you need more than the fact that when a person's life is in danger, the Torah gets moved aside and you are violating even the Shabbos to save his life, or your life, because the person comes first. Moshe Rabbeinu, by breaking the Torah, what he had established here, that he confirmed with his statement that if the Torah will be around, and therefore there will be a question on the people, how comes you behaved in that manner when the Torah says you cannot do it? Or as the Rashi says, this is the marriage contract, this is the ketubah. How can you go, you don't see your husband? How can you be unfaithful? Moshe said, if that's going to threaten the people, the Jews, then I have to break it to ensure that their survival is clear, because they come first. They take precedence over Torah. And therefore, my commitment is to them more than my commitment to Torah is. So you can imagine for Moshe what it meant, even though his whole life was centered around the Torah. He was the one who was the agent to bring the Torah to the people. And for all the generation, it's going to be remembered as Moshe's Torah, Zichru Torah, Moshe Avdi, remember the Torah of Moshe, that's what it's being referred. Or as the Torah says, Torah Tziva Lanu Moshe, Moshe commanded us the Torah, right? It's all coming from Moshe. But yet, Moshe, at the epitome of his relationship with the Torah, decides and confirms to himself and confirms to God and confirms for all the future generations that Torah is talking the greatest, but Am Yisrael, the people of God, are even greater than the wisdom of God. The people of God take precedence over the wisdom of God and the will of God. We come first, to the point that Itake tells God, erase me from your Torah if you don't recognize it, because the whole relationship that I have with you in the Torah is second to my relationship that I have with you in my relationship to the people as their leader. If this is not acceptable, then I don't want to be there. I can't be a part of it. And I saw this week an amazing insight, which was written by one of the Balei HaTosfot. Balei HaTosfot is our sages who lived 900 years ago in France. And I have a book which collects from different sources insights of the names of the Balei HaTosfot. And they are dealing with the same question that me asked before. Why was it so important for Moshe to break the Luchot? Why can't you just put it aside? Hold on to it for a little bit. Give it to Joshua, let him watch it. Why is the breaking? And I saw the most amazing insight. You know what it says? Tosfos says, Moshe is watching the Jewish people are committing a very severe, terrible sin. In Moshe's eyes, every second, every split of a second is very critical, because in every given moment that he has the luchot and he does not stop the singing and dancing in the celebration around the golden calf, his people are involved in a great sin. So Tosfos said, for Moshe, even to bend down and to find a place where to store the luchot, that minute what it takes That minute, what it takes for Moshe to take the luchot and put it nicely, safely away, and then rush over to the people, is a minute too much. Is a second too much, because that second was another second that these people were involved in something very wrong. So Moshe rather doesn't consider anything, but he lets the tablets out of his hands and rushes over to the people to protect them a half a minute earlier than looking where to deposit it. See how far it goes. Understand what's going on here? The few seconds which I will take him to find a nice place to put away the tablets is too expensive for Moshe when he sees what the people are involved with. To the point that Tisa says, as an halachic ruling, if you are carrying a Torah in your hand, a Torah scroll in the synagogue, it's a holy scroll, you carry it in your hand, and you see people are about to commit a terrible sin. And by going to put the Torah back in the ark, it will take an extra minute to run over and stop the people from sin. Let the Torah be dropped immediately on the floor and run to protect them. A minute, a half a minute. I'm not going to run to the ark. I'm not going to stop a second and put it on the bench, on a chair. No, it's a half a second. It's too much. Let it drop. You know what it means, a Torah to drop on the ground? This is the worst imaginary experience you ever want to witness. You should never see it. And here says Rabbi Yehuda Chassid, one of the great Baalei Tosfot 900 years ago, yes, that half a second which it takes to find a place where to put it safely is too much when you can protect the people. The power which we consider for others, for the people. And yet, if you think this is special, let me share with you something what the Rebbe's father writes. The Rebbe writes in the name of his father about the verse we mentioned in the beginning of the class. We're going to go back to that verse when Moshe is talking to God and he says, if you forgive them. Let's see what it says in the verse. What does it say? It says, let's go back to what it said. Vayomer Moshe, and Moshe said to Hashem, no, where is that? Oh, what does it say on verse 32? Take a look. The ato, and now, im Tisa chatoso, if you would bear their sin, the verse doesn't say what's going to happen. Rashi says, then arei tov, then it's good. But the verse only says, im Tisa chatoso, if you will bear their sin, ve'im ayin, but if not, then mecheini no misifrecha, then erase me from your book. The Rebbe's father says, you have to read the verse literally. If the verse doesn't say what's going to happen if you're going to forgive them, I guess we have to understand the verse differently. And this is what he says. If I wouldn't see it in his name, I would not believe that someone can say something like that. But this is what he says. Ve'ato, Moses turns to God and he says, Ve'ato, and now, im tisachatoso, whether you will forgive them, ve'im ayin, or you're not going to forgive them, mecheino, either way, get my name out of your book. What do you mean? If God is ready to forgive them, why would Moshe ask Hashem to be erased from the book? He's a good God. So the Rebbe's father said, Moshe was so devoted to the Jewish people, and he said to himself, if there was even a consideration to leave me and to spare me and to start a new world from me, and because of my existence, God can take the ability to annihilate everybody else. For me, just to be that possibility is already something which has to be completely eradicated. I can't consider to be a part of the Torah, which I, Moshe, was the person that God looked on and said, you know what, as long as you are here, I'm fine. I don't need anybody else. We're going to start something fresh with you. I was used as a tool to perhaps consider the annihilation of everybody else. God says, Moshe, you are here. How can I look myself in the mirror, Moshe says, thinking that I would have been the one spared from the entire Jewish people and start fresh with me? This is not a Torah I want to be a part of. So whether you forgive them or not forgiving them, the very fact that you mentioned that you are ready to do it, mechenino, take me out. You see how powerful it goes? The idea of who a true leader is. What is a true Moshe? Moshe is not only someone, a leader is not the one who guides his people, who directs his people, who inspires his people. Moshe is somebody that he is ready at every given moment to put himself completely aside, to become nullified entirely in order to protect and to put his people first and to make sure that they are being presented in the best way possible. Moshe is not someone who waits to find something to place the Torah somewhere. Moshe is not someone who is ready to allow himself to give in to God's anger. Moshe looks at a people which weren't good people. Bottom line, they were not good people, but they were the people of God. They weren't good people, but they were the people that God took out of Egypt. And as Moshe turns to Hashem and he says, I don't care, you took them out of Egypt, you cannot do it. We cannot afford Egypt to say that you are not ready to take them to the land, that's why you got rid of them. That's what the verses say. These are the people, you're going to be stuck with them, thin or thick, you are there with them forever. This is your people, you're not exchanging them for nobody. If somebody has to go, the Torah is going to go. They are going to stay. This is Moshe Rabbeinu. We don't understand sometimes when we talk about Moshe, we say this guy is like a Moshe, this guy. If you want to have a taste of leadership, what does it mean a real rebel is looking at Moshe? And what is the sample of Moshe? Always placing his people first. He had every excuse to be angry on them. And he was angry on them. Let's not put it aside. But to a point, don't annihilate them. Moshe turns to God, still at Sinai. What does it say? And we read it every time you have a fast day. We read that verse. On verse 11, it says, Moshe plead before Hashem, Vayichal Moshe es pnei Hashem Elokav. Moshe plead before Hashem his God. Vayomer, and he said, Lama Hashem yechre apcho ba'amecho. Why Hashem should you be angry against your people? Asher otzeiso be'eretz Mitzrayim, that you took out of Egypt, bekoach godol u'biyot chazoko, with a strong hand. What do you mean, lama? What kind of question, Moshe, you're asking lama? Lama? Because they sinned with the golden calf, so I'm angry. What kind of question is that, lama? What are you asking? You're making a joke? And the Rebbe explains that Moshe's question was not on God. why God is upset. Moshe's question is because God says a verse earlier, on verse 10, God says, please move it aside. He says, Anichali, desist from me, let my anger burn against them, and I shall annihilate them. And I shall make you into a great nation. So Moshe turns to God, whoa, 1 second. Lama, you angry? Fine. But what kind of sudden behavior is that when you're angry, it goes straight to annihilation? Never happened before. Adam. Was God angry on Adam that he ate from the tree of knowledge? Yes. Did he told him you're going to get punished for it? You're going to die? Yes. When did the death come to Adam? How long did Adam live after God told him you're going to die for eating from the tree of knowledge? 930 years later. Okay, I understand. There are consequences, but you process it. You give an opportunity. This kind of behavior that right away Hashem says, don't talk to me. I gotta let my anger burn. I gotta let the fire go, and I'm going to annihilate them. And you're gonna be the one. Moshe says, Lama. The Lama, this I don't understand. What's going on? And God did accept it. God accepted Moshe. They weren't annihilated. When you think about what happens on going to war, we spoke before that they took always the broken tablets with them. And you ask the question, why are you taking the broken tablets? Isn't that representing their misbehavior? Doesn't make any sense. You're trying to, in a war, you're looking for inspiration, you're looking for positive energy to surround you. What do you bring in the broken tablets? But now we understand. The broken tablets is reminding God the importance of the people who are fighting the war. This was broken, and it was confirmed that the people come first. So regardless of their behavior or misbehavior, you got to watch them. This is the symbol of the broken tablets. It's interesting. The Talmud writes, when you go visit a person who is sick or is very old, it's very important to go visit them, even if they don't perhaps going to appreciate your visit. They might not even know that you were there. And the Talmud uses the expression regarding people like that the broken tablets is also a part of the ark. In other words, don't think about just being complete and all. The broken tablets are also part of the ark. The shattered pieces of the tablets, even those people who are shattered and broken into pieces, physically, obviously, but even spiritually, they also belong. They also are part of the ark. And they were placed throughout the year in the Holy of Holiest, the holiest place in the temple, that only the high priest walked in once a year on the holiest day of the year. You know what he met here? A little box. And in that box was the luchot, plus the broken, shattered pieces of the original luchot. You can't ignore something which is shattered and broken. Many times that which is broken is a tremendous reminder of great things that he or she had accomplished. Sometimes I go visit an individual, an elderly person. Take, for example, this week, yesterday, I was at a funeral. Some of you know Dr. Wyman, your father, Your father was born in 1922, 100 years ago. A long time for most of us, not for Arnold, but right? 100 years ago. And I saw him in the last couple of years, he couldn't hear at all. But when his daughter brought him to shul, I used to go over, sing with them, speak to him. And I was so inspired to watch a person, which even he doesn't communicate with me, but he was the one in his so-called, in his brokenness, as a person now, carries a life experience. He was fighting in World War II, fighting against the fascists, against the Nazis, together with the Russians. Matter of fact, he printed books in Russian because he was upset to realize that people don't remember or don't pay attention how much of Jewish people had contributed to the war against Nazi Germany. So he wrote books about Jewish generals and Jewish fighters and Jewish soldiers. It was very important for him that people should know that the Jewish people in Russia had a tremendous part in being an end to the German, to the Nazis. Yet you think, where is he? He doesn't understand me. He doesn't talk. He doesn't hear me. What am I visiting him? This is the kind of pieces which were in the ark. This is the kind of people which are always to be cherished. Even the perhaps they are not complete now, but they share a tremendous lesson, a tremendous source of energy for all of us. And this is the lesson of the Parsha. And we talk about Shviras Haluchos, two important things. Number one, to remember that the big lesson of the Parsha is to be creative and necessary to protect another person, to protect another Yid. Even if it looks like he's involved in idol worship, Rahman al-Islam, he went so far and gone, try to advocate to God for him. And by advocating to God, you have the opportunity to even help that person to become closer to Hashem. It's very easy to go around and to say, Shanda, and look what happens and so on. No, we got to look ways to advocate. Obviously, personally, you got to tell him the truth. You can't tell him, oh, you're so great, you're so wonderful, even when you're behaving so wrongly, you're mamish tzaddik. You're not a tzaddik. You deserve to change, and you have to learn to become a better person. But between you and God, when you stand in daven, you say, what do you want from Nebuch? It's not his fault. It's not her fault. They don't know better. They follow their friends. They follow society. Try to advocate for them. God doesn't need to hear your criticism. He has enough prosecutors who are standing there trying to criticize his children. If you want to be answered on your own personal prayers, try to advocate to God and all the others in their so-called crazy behavior. This is what Moshe does. Who was Moshe advocating for? People who are sinning of the golden calf. Not only sinning. You know what our sages tell us? Which Moshe was mostly upset. Not only the fact that they worshipped a golden calf, they danced around it. What are you dancing? You want to sin? Sin. Why me dance? Why me celebration? Why me excitement? It's like I'm having a party. What are you doing? But he advocated for them too. He advocated for that too. And this is who Moshe was. And the second lesson is the importance to pay attention to the shattered pieces. When something is shattered, something is broken, you don't just scatter it in the garbage can for recycling. You put it in the ark. You take those broken luchas and you carry it to war and you keep it in the Holy of Holies, shattered many times. is a representation of something so great and so high and so holy and so unbelievable that it can become your own protector and inspiration. Don't just ignore shattered Jews, shattered people, broken pieces. Gather them, put them, bring them in, give them some attention and love, and you're going to see those broken pieces are really that which inspires us. They are sometimes greater than the ones who think that they are great. You know, sometimes we had children who are never disabled, and you think, oh, they are disabled, they are special, they are disabled, they can't do this, they can't do this. Many times those disabled kids in their accomplishments show who is the real disabled, unfortunately. But anyway, let's speak positive. Let's end up with a positive note that the power of the broken tablets reminds us of the power of tshuva. This is really the story of the golden calf, that God gave us a second chance. And we should always use the opportunity to return and to come back and not to have to get stuck in one place. There's always nicer and better and greater that we can reach and accomplish. No reason to get stuck. If Hashem gives us a day, an additional day in our life, we gotta become better people. Every person has to become a Baal Tshuva. Whatever you did today is not enough for tomorrow. Whatever you did yesterday is not enough for today. That's the story. Tonight is Shushan Purim Cotton, which reminds us that we have to be b'simcha. I want to take this opportunity to also make sure that you see the emails and you come join us a week from this coming Sunday, February 27th at the Eastside Torah Center, where we are going to have a special Hasidic concert with a band coming from Tzfat, the holy city of Israel, which they're going to perform in special Hasidic music and melodies in a very beautiful way. You don't want to miss it. We will see you there, Bezrat Hashem, God willing, a week from this coming Sunday. Otherwise, have a wonderful good night. Shabbat Shalom. And looking forward to see you all again. If you have any questions, you can unmute yourself, and I would love to hear what you have to say.
Thanks so much, Rabbi.
You're very
Thank
welcome.
you, Rabbi. Thank you, Rabbi. Very inspiring.
Thank you. What am I going to do now? With the inspiration. What am I going to do with the inspiration?
For who?
What? Drink tea.
Stay well.
Amen. Anybody else wants a tea? I'm letting you have tea. Make yourself a tea.
Tea
You don't drink tea before you're going to sleep?
tea with ginger or samagon?
Honey, lemon, and tea. And hot
Good.
water.
Good.
Honey, lemon, and ginger.
No ginger.
You
And
put
hot-
ginger.
Honey, lemon. What else?
Hot water.
No, put ginger. It's good for ginger too.
Ginger is David Schneider. He took all the ginger. He's the ginger guy.
When you drink tea, you're supposed to put a sugar cube in your mouth.
Why?
Drink it that way. Ask the Russians. That's the way we do it.
I put honey inside. Tonight is my mother's birthday.
Mazel tov.
Wow.
Call her, wish her a happy birthday. She's turning
220.
the young age of 74.
Oh.
A junge vrouw.
A young idol.
Yeah.
Mm.
You give her a very warmest.
Okay, thank you. My mother said that she's actually much younger than 74 because she was born on a leap year on the first Adar. But not every year there's a first Adar. So many years she doesn't have a birthday. She's really like about 40 years old or something. If you count up only the years that there was a first Adar, so then she's much younger than 74.
Every 7 years.
Yeah, every 7 years? No.
On the Jewish calendar, you have a leap year, I think, every 7 years.
No.
Every 4 years.
Every 4 is it like?
No.
You have probably,
Like the solar?
probably every 19 years, you probably have 7 years of leap years.
Wow.
Every 19 years, probably you have 7 years of leap years.
Yeah, that's what I meant.
That's what you meant. Tell me about it.
You're not convinced.
I'm not convinced. Ask
Yeah,
Arnold
that's
if I'm convinced.
Your mother is younger than you are.
Younger than me? Yeah, correct.
Yeah.
That's an interesting question. Baruch Hashem. She's healthy.
Yeah, the most
Even
important, stay well, and we are glad to have you in our synagogue and
Thank
to
you.
see you every Wednesday on class.
Very good. Okay. Thank you very much, everybody. I'm going to let you go. I will see
Thank you,
all-
Rabbi.
Live with
Thank
both.
you.
Thank you.